Let's unpack the legal implications of that move by the Senate. We are now joined by UP Constitutional Law Professor Dan Gatmaytan. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Gretchen.
Okay, several things to unpack here from the statements of our good senators. But let's begin with first assessing what happened. Yesterday was quite the whirlwind, from the oath-taking to the convening of the court to the remanding of the articles of impeachment. Did you expect it to go down that way?
I don't think anyone legally expected that to happen, although we've heard rumors about it, the day before. I think the logical conclusion here was for the Senate to proceed with the trial of the Vice President. Therefore, that's what we were expecting.
Okay, but from a legal standpoint, is the remanding of the articles constitutional? Is that word even there?
Word is not there, and I don't think it's constitutional, for the same reason that I mentioned earlier, because this thing is supposed to proceed to trial. And based on what they said yesterday, the remand or whatever you want to call it, it's done to give the House an opportunity to explain if it in fact complied with the Constitution. It's kind of insulting if I was the House, no? If I were the House of Representatives, all of they follow the Constitution, and I expect the House to make that statement. The problem is some senators are raising constitutional issues, and it's not for the impeachment court or the House to settle these issues now. These issues that were raised are already pending before the Supreme Court, and they have somehow managed to bring them up here as if the impeachment court had some authority to settle these matters.
Actually, meron nga po akong nakita na post online na sinasabi nga po, which made me think, no, na why is it the senator jurors asking about the constitutionality of this complaint or the impeachment articles? At hindi mismo si Vice President Sara Duterte. Kung sila ang tatayong mga jury dito, bakit doon pa lang napag-uusapan na yung constitutionality? It shows some bias towards the articles of impeachment even before the trial begins.
Exactly. That's why we were expecting the trial to begin, to give the respondent, Vice President Duterte, a chance to raise these legal objections. It is for her to raise them. And what we've been seeing ever since her impeachment are certain members of the Senate lawyering for her. It's anomalous. It's illegal. It's the ground. These are grounds for recusal.
Nevertheless, we are at that choke point, and the Senate has said they have 2 points they want to raise. Tama po kayo, dun sa unang punto ay constitutional nga ba itong fourth complaint dahil inupuan yung unang tatlo. At yung pangalawa naman, for the Senate to know if the 20th Congress feels the same way about pursuing the impeachment trial. I want to go to the second point because the first one is about the legal issue surrounding it. Paano nga po ba yun? Kung iba na yung ihip ng hangin dito sa 20th Congress, what happens now to the articles of impeachment brought about by the 19th Congress?
Legally, the House has already performed its constitutional duty. The issue has been passed to the Senate, and the Senate, according to the Constitution, should try the Vice President. I don't understand, or my colleagues don't understand, why you have House, whether they're still interested in it or not. At least they can determine whether the Senate will perform its duty as an impeachment court or not.
Pero dahil tatawid po ito sa 20th Congress, the prosecution would be filled up by congressmen from the 20th Congress. So, in a way, yung composition of the House, who was responsible for this impeachment trial to begin with, mag-iiba rin. So how do we settle that in terms of pag natapos na ba yung trabaho ng House of Representatives, tapos na at naipasa na talaga yung bola, hindi na pwedeng ibalik. Or sabi nga nila, pinagtatalunan din nila yung ibig sabihin ng remand na we are just clarifying.
Yun na nga. You can't. There is no space for that, for whatever the hell the Senate did last night, di ba? Can we clarify? Ang trabaho po ng Senado dyan is to try the Vice President. Ngayon, may change ng composition sa House. That's true, di ba? But so far in the news, we've heard that the House has made adjustments, especially because the certain members of the prosecution panel were not re-elected. Yun na yung trabaho na. Is to make sure meron kang prosecutors. And that's it. And so far, based on what we've seen from the House, they're interested. And they really shouldn't concern themselves with that. Kung nag-try sila, tapos hindi sumipot yung mga prosecutor, then maybe that's the answer they're waiting for. But we should give the House an opportunity to appear before the impeachment court.
Okay. Solgen Florin Hilbay gave his comment on this online, and he said that constitutionally, if the House withdraws, if they respond and they withdraw the articles of impeachment, they are constitutionally within their powers. If the House rejects, then proceed, or rather, if they withdraw, then it is effectively a functional dismissal. What would you say about that? And even Senator Hontiveros said remanding is a functional dismissal.
Well, there would have been a strong argument to that effect, except that the Senate kept on insisting that that's not what they're doing. So the Senate should be bound by those assurances that we are not dismissing the case.
It does feel that it could be a dangerous precedent for future articles of impeachment, that it could go down this route na pwedeng pagpasapasahan at sabi nga ni Senator Bato de la Rosa, walang silbi ang korte na ito if hindi inherent ang power niya to dismiss. I mean, even...
There's a problem there.
There's
a problem there kasi yung function ng court is to find either, make a ruling, it's either she's guilty or she's not. I don't know why he's concerned with dismissing the case so much. Diba? Kasi ang basis niya kasi is constitutionality. In which case, they should go to court. Not decide these issues on their own.
It's either conviction or acquittal lamang with your point of view.
Yun ang silbi ng impeachment court.
Pero yun nga po ay it seems that this is thriving in the gray areas. What can the people do now about this? That I guess that's the question. Pag dribble ay anong pwedeng gawin?
Yun ang yung sinabi mo kanina about being bad president. That's true. Everything we've seen so far on the side of the Senate leads to that conclusion. Kung wala kang gagawin, i-dribble mo, at ibabalik mo pa. You know, I think politically na yung mga solution diyan, di ba? Is to pressure your Senate to make sure we want them to do the right thing, etc. To make sure that this thing is concluded in the right way, constitutionally, hindi yung by magic tricks na gawa nila so far.
But Attorney, let's talk about scenarios. What could the House do at this point?
The House can reply. They, of course, will follow the Constitution. No? Parang ang nangyayari ngayon is everything that's being done is open to a legal challenge. Can the Senate return the impeachment articles? Pwede kang magsampa ng kaso dyan eh. Can the, kung hindi sumagot yung House, can they be held to account? Abuse of discretion ba yan? Ito yung sinasamang gray areas because instead of following what the Constitution says, they tried a lot of new things, and in the process, you are creating new legal issues. What are the scenarios? Isang katutak na kaso yan.
Okay, so ultimately, do you think this will be settled in the Supreme Court?
Yes. Even if may finding ang impeachment trial, court, whether it's guilty or not, uh, there are already a lot of procedural constitutional issues that are popping up. So in the end, the court may have to step in.
Okay, if this leads to the 20th Congress, which it ultimately will, and they reject the Senate's proposal for dismissal, or some of the senators' proposal for dismissal, and they send it back, does it have to be in the same form, the articles of impeachment? Because you can only file an impeachment case once every year. So dapat po ba pareho, walang dapat baguhin, or mag-iiba yun? Dahil technically parang hindi na 19th, 20th na eh.
I think it should be the same. Kasi they will be vulnerable to a challenge. Sabihin nila that violates the 1 year rule. Hindi naman to yung whether bago na yung Congress eh. It's literally a year. So hindi mo pwedeng baguhin yan. Pag nagbago ka dyan, sabihin nila that violates the 1 year rule because that is a different impeachment complaint.
Okay, so it has to be the same form of impeachment articles. But I am actually quite confused now because sabi naman din ng Senado, hindi ito dismissal, hindi ito termination, at tinuloy pa yung summons kay Vice President Sara Duterte at pinagpapaliwanag din yung defense. So, what are your expectations on the way forward from here?
Well, insofar as nag-issue sila ng summons, di ba? Then legally, the Vice President is obliged to respond to that. Ang problema lang, yung remand creates certain legal uncertainties. Ano ba talaga ibig sabihin nun? And like everyone else, you're right, you're confused. Everyone's confused. Because of what the Senate did last night seems to be a contradiction, di ba? Binalik mo, and yet you're requiring the respondent to reply. So, I'm just as confused as you are.
Pero, Professor, this actually reminds me of what happened with Senator Laila de Lima na ni-remand din yung decision ng Sandigan Bayan back to the court that decided on her acquittal. Parang pinalilinaw yung basehan para mas laliman pa yung pagpapaliwanag. Hindi ba nangyayari din naman yan sa mga korte na nire-remand din talaga kapag hindi mo maintindihan o mayroon ka mga provision na naguguluhan na duty nung nagpasa sa'yo ng kaso or desisyon na ipaliwanag ng mabuti yung mga bagay-bagay.
Okay, but we're not, okay, one, pag sa korte, usually i-remand mo yan because additional evidence is required or may decision yung lower court na mali kasi i-reverse ng Supreme Court halimbawa. For example, sabihin ng lower court, wala kaming jurisdiction on this issue. Kasi sabihin ng korte, well, of course we do. So i-remand nila yung kaso so that the trial court can try the case. Okay? But in this case, impeachment, hindi naman evidence ang i-require nila eh. Ang tinatanong nila, did you violate the Constitution? And that is not the subject of a remand, even if it is it can be legally done by the impeachment court.
So it does not, function in the same way.
Yes, it's different. Iba yung nature kasi ng impeachment trial eh. And let's say, hingi pa nga ng facts. Andyan na nga eh. Because the Constitution says, pag over 1/3 yung vote na supporting yung impeachment, yan na yung articles of impeachment. The document.
Ultimately, at its core, it is different. The impeachment being a political exercise in practice. So I guess we will be subject to headwinds. Hopefully not too much, but as we try to get things clear by the day, maraming salamat muna for your thoughts on this, on what happened yesterday over at the Senate plenary floor. We have UP Constitutional Law Professor Dan Gatmaytan.